during COVID. It's hard.
Yeah. All right, we are back and we will call to order the regular meeting of the Reading Board of Education for September 6th, 2022 at 7:17 p.m. The first item of business is the consent agenda. Are there any questions or comments on the August 2nd, 2022 regular board meeting minutes? If there are not, we will deem them approved by unanimous consent and move on to public comment. Any members of the public wishing to be heard this evening? Going once. All right, board member comments, any members of the board wishing to be heard? Right.
So I just want to say how great it is to see multiple people who want to be on the board. Because I know in the past, there've been some difficulty in getting candidates. So I encourage, even if you don't get put in positions, I encourage all of you to run. You're all wonderful candidates and qualified. So thank you.
Thanks, 1 second that.
Any other comments?
Yeah, agreed. Thank you, everyone. Yeah.
Take a slightly different subject and just comment that I had the pleasure and privilege to attend the convocation for ER9 last Tuesday, was it? In the morning at Barlow, and it was lovely to see everybody in the community, the teachers all together for the first time in 3 years in one room, and listen to Dr. McKinnon's inspiration for the year. So thank you for that.
I'm sorry.
If there's no other board member comments, we'll move on to the board vacancy. And to sort of frame this topic briefly, as the board is aware, a vacancy was created by resignation over the summer. Notice of this resignation was formally given at our August regular meeting, and as is customary, I provided notice to the Republican and Democratic Town Committee chairs. I also published the notice of the vacancy on the board's Facebook page and encouraged interested parties to come forward to be considered. In total, 4 candidates have expressed interest in filling the vacancy, with a term running from its date is filled through November of 2023. Pursuant to state statute, it is the board's role to fill vacancies. Our bylaws require 4 members to vote for a candidate for that person to be appointed. Our bylaws do not require the preference be given to any political party in the process, and any of the 4 candidates can be seated without violating the state minority representation rules. Earlier this evening, about 5 minutes ago, the board interviewed 4 candidates and learned about their backgrounds and goals. It is now time for deliberation and voting on this issue. Before we begin deliberation and voting, I do want to acknowledge and thank the 4 candidates for coming forward. The work of a school board is indeed work, and almost always very thankless work. Whoever is elected will need to jump in quickly and prepare for budget discussions, strategic planning work, and collective bargaining issues almost immediately. If you are not appointed, I encourage you to please stay involved and engaged. As Sharad mentioned, it is always helpful to have a lot of people interested and involved in this work. The town benefits from members of the community who are engaged in our school governance. There is also an election in just 14 months with 4 seats coming up for election. And I can tell you from experience that sitting here tonight is a lot harder in many ways than standing for a November election. Don't be discouraged. At this time, I would welcome any motions or discussion from board members. If the board wishes, discussion of candidates for appointment may be conducted by an executive session, but the candidates may request to be held in public. If there are any motions at this time to enter an executive session, we'll entertain them. Likewise, with any discussion, we'll entertain such discussion.
So if we discuss it all in the executive session, unless candidates prefer to have.
So you can discuss in public, or the board can decide to move to executive session to discuss in executive session. But if they were to do so, the candidate with whom that you're talking about will have the right to force it to be public.
Right, okay. Or alternatively, we just.
Ultimately, we can vote. You can say whatever you want now in public, or we can just vote.
What's the process for voting since there's 6 of us?
So, right, so I prepared written ballots and we'll take a round of balloting, and if a candidate achieves 4 votes, they'll be appointed. If they don't, we'll take a second round of balloting, and we could either continue until we decide that there's a deadlock. We could recess, we could move to executive session for deliberation at that point, or we could suspend in theory tonight and not appoint somebody tonight and continue the process.
So each round of ballots, are we removing a candidate if they don't get any votes?
technically, in the Robert's rules world, you can vote for anybody at any point in time, but I think it's a practical matter that if after a round of voting, if there's somebody who received no votes, it'd be reasonable to knock them off, but.
Is the voting, public or?
If the voting is in writing, but it's ultimately subject to public. So I'm distributing small little ballots that have a place for your name, and I'll ask you to put the ballot number. So this will be ballot number 1, and then put the name of the candidate you're voting for. And then once you've completed that, you can send it back to the people.
Reactor, do you mind if I use these or?
As long as you leave them all ballot 1.
Oh, that's okay. This actually feels like a high school election.
I've received 6 ballots, so that's good. So in the first round of balloting, there are 2 votes for Laura Nelson, 2 votes for Amanda Guarneri, 1 vote for John Shanahan, and 1 vote for Megan Peck.
Nice.
So at this time, I'd entertain further discussion, or we can move to the second round ballot.
What's gonna prevent this from just repeating?
No. No, I mean that in all candor.
Okay.
It can very well repeat itself, and we could deadlock, at which point we'll have to move on with the business of the board. But
Or we could go to executive session.
we go to executive session and talk about it for a little bit, and not vote, but at least
Right.
air anybody's questions or concerns.
I'm
What
fine.
keeps it
with
is-
that.
Change their vote.
I'm sorry.
So what keeps it from happening again?
Well, if we don't go to executive, if we don't talk about it in some way, I don't see that happening, right? Why would anyone change the vote if we're not discussing it? So can we go to a motion to go to executive session?
So there's a motion to recess to executive session for the purpose of discussing candidates for appointment for the vacancy.
I'll make it.
I think sure, I just want to make sure that I heard that.
Yeah.
Just a second. All right, all in favor? It passes unanimously. I'll give the opportunity at this point, the expectation being that we discuss all 4 candidates.
Yep.
I give the opportunity for any of the candidates to request that the discussion with them be in public. And hearing none, I think it makes sense if the room is full for the board to recess from the room and conduct the executive session and nearby.
Can't invite them to general. I can stay here.
I didn't even say here.